fourth quarter with just a few seconds on the clock. It was a tie game. This was not just any water polo game. It was Division One varsity playoff game against our arch rivals, Clovis West. My heart was racing, and it took everything in my power to keep my focus. My teammate forced a turnover, and I just had a few feet of distance between me and my defender. I saw an opportunity unfolding, and in that moment, I became more clutch than Tim Tebow, Eli Manning, and Michael Jordan combined.
Sorry.
I sprinted down the pool and put up the game-winning score with less than a second on the clock. For the next several days, I received praise from my teammates, coaches, and most importantly, my father. You may be thinking this experience was one of my greatest moments, the single point in my life where I will ever reach my full potential. I'm not gonna lie, it probably was. But it was also a wake-up call, a moment for me to reflect on life and think about all the other paths I could have taken. A moment for me to look back on all the choices I made and how different my life would be if I'd done things differently. A moment for me to reinvent myself and look to the future while acknowledging the past and how it shaped me. For me, I always wondered what it would be like to play a different sport, but for the most part, that was out of the question. Although my whole family played water polo and swimming, I began to resent the sport because of how little control I had over the decisions I made. I was put into the sport at a young age. I took swimming lessons at age 4. I did swim club from ages 5 to 15, and I soon realized I was being groomed for the sport. My dad went so far as to sign me up for jiu-jitsu lessons, thinking it would help me. I had no idea it was intended for water polo, so he told me about it later. While I thought it was kind of useless, I found it cool to tell my friends that I was a white belt in jiu-jitsu. Anyways, I can vividly remember begging my father to let me skip swim practice. At this time, I was going to a small private school, and that had not played any water polo yet, and just swim club. I hated the cold pool, the icy weather, and because it was not a team sport, it was very difficult for me to enjoy. I had the wrong mindset going into it. When I finally finished elementary school, I at least was an efficient swimmer, which helped me transition to the sport for high school. As soon as I moved from public school to private school in 8th grade, the pressure was on. My father was a Hall of Fame water polo player in high school and at Fresno State. My brother in high school won 2 championships and was a first-team All-American. My other brother held multiple swimming records as well. Instantaneously on my arrival to public school and on practice the first day, the coaches and players knew my name. The first friend I made, which happened to be on the water polo team, told me I would easily be better than everyone else, literally knowing nothing about me but my siblings and my father. You see, I had a legacy to carry on in a sport that I knew nothing about. Instead of calling, coaches would just refer to me by my last name. To them, I was just another Kennedy. On the first day of practice and first time I ever played water polo, one teammate said, "Come on, dude, you have to be as good as your brother." It was literally the first time I'd ever played the sport, and my expectations were already high. Naturally, I was a little fuming and mostly overwhelmed by the pressure put on me. Why could I not just be myself and enjoy the sport? I felt like I had something to prove right off the bat. I pondered quitting the sport altogether that day, but decided to stick with it. After all, I really had no other choice. It was the only sport I knew how to play. My grandfather always said to never quit from a commitment that you made, and this was a commitment that I made, so I decided to stick with it. Instead of shying away from the sport, I chose to embrace it. Every day at practice, I would walk past this wall with all my brother's records on it, and instead of being upset at it, I used it as motivation to fuel me. In the past, I was putting in work to make myself and my family. Waking up for morning practices at 5 a.m., then struggling through rigorous afternoon workouts, then water polo camps to improve my game. It felt as if my life consisted of nothing but sports and academics. After a while, I began to dramatically improve my sophomore year and earned a spot on the varsity team. This was a very rewarding experience. To me, it made me realize that work ethic is the most significant value to succeed not just in sports, but in life. I kept working to get better and chose to use criticism to fuel my drive. I was determined to succeed, and my determination in the sport finally paid off. After becoming a valuable member of the team, I instantly felt more involved. I had a good group of friends and a sport that I learned to love, and my academics started dramatically improving. Fast forward to that game, and it all seemed to make more sense. I felt more accomplished, and I thanked my father for always pushing me to succeed. At the end of the day, we have to make the most of the decisions of the situation we're in and keep a positive attitude. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychologist, once said, when we are no longer to change our situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The path I took may have been somewhat forced, but I made the most of my situation. The friendships I made and the lessons I learned from this experience made it well worth the hardships I overcame.